Good evening, members, and welcome to Full Council, Wednesday the 16th of July. There are no planned fire drills during this meeting. If you hear the fire alarm, please treat it as a real emergency and evacuate the building via the nearest safe escape route. The nearest escape route is via the stairs to your left as you leave the council chamber or public gallery. Exit via the door at the back of the building and walk across the inner car park to the evacuation point, which is the pavement opposite the police station. The lifts can't be used in the event of an emergency, and please do not re-enter the building until you're advised it's safe to do so by a member of staff. I would like to advise both members and members of the public and press that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast live. Mobile phones should be switched off unless they are being used for the meeting. Please only speak when I ask you to do so and speak clearly into the microphone. Gents, if you wish to remove jackets this evening, that includes you, Steve, then please do. It's quite warm. Councillor Brodie has come suitably attired already. Look at that, lush. Okay, apologies. Apologies have been received from Councillors Gladwin, Councillors McLean, Councillor Redrup and Councillor Quigley. Councillor Price has got in contact to say he believes he's going to be late, and we have apologies from Councillor Lilly. Are there any more apologies? Councillor Blake.
Thank you, Chair. Just to clarify that Councillor Ray Redrup is not here. I don't know which one you're referring to earlier, and also Councillor Drew apologises. He's taken on wrong.
Thank you, Councillor Blake. So we now move to the agenda, and first of all, I'd like to welcome Councillor Jeffries to the chamber. A round of applause, I think, ladies and gentlemen, because a bit of whooping as well. Fantastic, good stuff. Mark, you're very, very welcome. If Rodney's, I was sat next to Rodney for the best part of 4 years, to my benefit, I may add, and he spoke very highly of you. So I'm sure you're going to represent the community very well. You're very welcome. Thank you, and good luck. Okay, item 1 on the agenda are the minutes. To approve the minutes of the following meetings. Full Council of 21st of May 2025. We have been advised of a couple of changes to minute number 16, which is appointments to outside bodies. Councillor Andre was nominated and appointed to Youth Justice Management Board and not Councillor Fuller. And Councillor Julie Jones-Evans, Nick Stewart and Phil Jordan, councillors, were appointed to the Economic Development Board. We've also got various other minutes to approve. I would like to take the vote on block unless there are any further corrections. Obviously, this is not an opportunity to debate. Councillor Jarman.
Thank you for dealing with one of the issues that I sent in earlier. There is one before that, which is related to the opening statement of the meeting of the 21st. Would you like me to go through all of the corrections individually, or would you like to accept those on block, Chair?
I'll just ask the monitoring officer to clarify the position there, Councillor John.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. The issue of minutes is that minutes aren't meant to be transcripts of a meeting. They're just a democratic services record of the meeting that helps identify what was actually decided and the resolutions. So if there are issues of accuracy of the minutes, then I think that's something you should consider, Chair. But if it's about style or emphasis, then I think we've just got to be careful that we don't kind of reopen the whole issue of minutes again. Thank you, Chair.
So, as I say, I think that answers the question. I would like to move that we vote on block with this, and I ask and seek for a seconder on that. Councillor Lever. Thank you.
Chair, as a point of order, I didn't have an answer to my question. Are we accepting all of the corrections that I sent in on block or voting on them individually?
Councillor
The
Jarman.
first one has not been addressed even yet.
No, we're voting on.
It is not a question of style, it is a question of fact.
Councillor Jarman, it's not a point of order. We are voting on block on this. As the monitoring officer has explained the situation, we have a seconder and we'll move to the vote. So all those in favour for voting on block for these minutes, please raise. All those against? Any abstentions? Thank you.
Chair, may I just ask a question? It's a semi-point of order, and that is this. Has the council now voted for the minutes as amended by Councillor Jarman?
No, Councillor Spring, we've just approved the minutes on block.
So you've rejected Councillor Jarman's amendments?
Yes. You're voting the minutes on block. Agenda item number 2, declarations of interest. Have we any members that wish to declare any interest, stating the nature of the interest and the agenda item, please? Councillor Jones-Evans.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, a non-pecuniary interest in the approval of street furniture pavement licensing policy, which is item 8A, as I'm a vice chair of Newport Business Association and they fully engaged in the consultation.
Thank you, Councillor. Anybody else? Councillor Bacon.
Chair, my declaration is in relation to the same matter, which actually I'm also down to introduce. I do part own a high street retail business, but I've taken advice from the monitoring officer and been advised there's no close enough interest to give me any issue that I need to do anything more other than just declare that I have a high street retail business.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bacon. Any other declarations of interest? Councillor Jarman.
Thank you. First of all, on item 7 on the agenda, I'm a magistrate in the Newport bench on the Isle of Wight, so I will not be taking part in that. That's a non-pecuniary interest. And then secondly, I wish to declare a second non-pecuniary interest. It is my firm belief that the procedure by which the chair of full council was elected at the meeting of the 21st of May 2025 was unlawful.
Councillor Jarman, I'm going to have to stop you there.
Followed the said law,
Councillor
unlawful
Fuller.
election is null and void.
Councillor Jarman, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm declaring an interest in item number 7, in that I am a magistrate like Councillor Jarman is, but I also sit on the youth panel.
Thank you, Councillor Fuller. Any other declarations of interest?
Should say it.
We move to agenda item number 3, which is public question time. And we have received various questions this evening. It's all good. So we go to the public gallery. Are we going to take the public, which we're going to take? Okay, have we got someone from the youth council? No.
Take the other question first.
Okay, so in that case, we'll take the other question first. From a Miss T. Robinson to the Chair of Adult Social Care, Public Health and Housing Needs Committee. Miss Robinson, are you up there? No, okay. So Councillor Mosdell, what would you like to do with this question? Would you like to respond?
There is a very long written response, which I think we should send to the person who wrote the question, but also for everybody to note that on the 24th, on the Thursday, as you know, Adults Committee is the only part that still has a scrutiny function, and that part of this meeting on the 24th will be about children's mental health. So this will be very much discussed on that evening as well. So we will send the written response, but if there is another question like to come along or attend that part of the meeting, she's most welcome to do so.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mosdell. So the question from the Youth Council to the Chair of Children's Services, Education and Skills Committee. Is there someone to? Yes, there is. Ask the question. Please introduce yourself and fire away.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, right. Sorry for that technical kerfuffle. The question from the Youth Council is, there's been a national trend of children being taken into care with complex needs, and there is a nationwide shortage of children's home places for children with complex needs especially. So what is the council doing to increase children's social care provision on the island so that children with complex needs are not forced to leave to the mainland?
Councillor Morster, would you like to respond? Sorry, I'm sorry. Councillor Brading.
Yeah, that is me, Chairman. Thank you.
It is.
And firstly, thank you to the Youth Council for coming to all of our meetings recently and asking very pertinent questions. This is another one. So in response to your question, firstly, thanks for your question. Ensuring that children who have experienced complex lives can remain on the Isle of Wight, close to their families, schools and communities, is a priority for this council. We recognise the emotional and practical impact that off-island placements can have, and we're taking a number of strategic steps to address this challenge. Firstly, we are actively reviewing and updating our sufficiency strategy to better understand the types of homes and care settings we now need and in the future. This includes both foster care and specialised residential provision for children with the most complex needs. To support this, we are doing the following: expanding our local SEND provision significantly. Over 200 new specialist education places have been created across the island. These expansions will support children with autism, social, emotional and mental health needs, and high anxiety, reducing the need for off-island placements. We're reviewing our foster care recruitment and retention strategy, including a refreshed marketing campaign and a review of allowances to ensure we remain competitive with neighbouring authorities and independent fostering agencies. Working closely with regional partners, including the Regional Care Cooperative and Local Authority Fostering South East, to improve placements, matching and increase the number of foster carers on the island. We're using the tools like BERRI, which is a clinical evaluation system, to better understand and meet the needs of children with complex needs, ensuring they are placed in the most appropriate settings. And we're regularly reviewing all off-island homes to ensure they continue to meet the child's needs and, where appropriate, planning for their return to the island. Whilst there are still cases where specialist provision is not yet available locally, we are committed to reducing these instances and building a more resilient, inclusive care system here on the island. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brading. Do you have a supplementary question?
There is no supplementary question.
Thank you very much, and thank you for taking part. Have we got any questions from the public gallery this evening? Ooh, good. Could we have someone step forward to ask the first question? Please give your name and who the question is for. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay? Yes. Thank you for this opportunity. Right. In my hand, this is the Guide to Coroner Services for Bereaved People issued by the Ministry of Justice, which I only found by accident.
So I'm sorry to interrupt. May I have your name first, please?
Moses Gibson.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. So I found this online by accident 8 days ago. On page 20, it says, the inquest hearing should take place within 6 months or as soon as reasonably possible. If a coroner has not completed their investigation within 12 months, they must report it to the chief coroner, giving reasons for the delay. And on page 23, the Coroner Office will contact you regularly in a long investigation. They will contact you at least every 3 months to update you on your case. And finally, on page 35, it advises me to complain to the local authority which funds the coroner service you are dissatisfied with. I and my family had been waiting 818 days for an inquest on my partner, Nicola Merrick, and have not been contacted regularly. Other people have been waiting almost 1,500 days. This is on the Isle of Wight. How long has the Isle of Wight Council been aware of these problems, and what are the main reasons given to the Chief Coroner for the long delays by our local coroner?
Thank you for your question. I assume that's directed to the leader.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the question. And very briefly, I'd say that the council and Her Majesty's senior coroner are working together to address the delays in inquests being completed, and a full review of the service is being undertaken and will inform a detailed recovery plan. Working together, the council and the senior coroner are identifying how the delays can be reduced to enable inquests to progress in a timely way, whilst not compromising the quality and thoroughness of investigations. That's the answer, Chair.
Thank you very much. Have you supplementary questions, sir?
Yes, I do actually. I'm very proud to say this. I've been a volunteer for Isle of Wight Council's Youth Justice Service and Family Services since before our tragic loss. My fellow colleagues are an impressive array and have an impressive array of skills and experience. Plus, we are trained and security passed by the council. Has the council discussed the option of volunteer support to help the struggling Island Coroner Service? I, for one, would offer to help Coroner Service to help as many struggling families as possible, as swiftly as possible.
Thank you very much. Councillor Jordan.
Thank you, Chair. Again, thank you for that supplementary question. I'm not aware that we have discussed that. I will take that away, discuss that with the Chief Exec tomorrow morning when we meet, and we will come back to you directly and publish that, any plans that we may have to move forward with that suggestion. And thank you for it. That's
Please do. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your engagement. Who have we got next, please, from the public gallery? Please state your name and if you know the question of whom it will be directed to.
Hello, Chair. Thank you. My question is directed to Councillor Julie Coates-Evans, and I am speaking on behalf of residents of the Camp Hill estate.
And what's your name, please? Madam?
My name is Margaret Cassell.
Welcome, Margaret.
Cassell.
Thank you, Margaret.
It concerns the closure of an access road by HMP Isle of Wight. The road was closed with concrete bollards on the 2nd of May before the roadworks on Horsebridge Hill. This was done with concrete bollards stopping us having access to Parkhurst Road. I contacted my councillor, Councillor Garrett, who over that weekend contacted the prison service, and we were told it was because of the Horsebridge Hill roadworks and they would be removed. As yet, they are still there. Myself and other residents are not happy that we had no prior notification. We weren't asked an opinion, and this is contravening a clause in our deeds which over 100 households on the estate have. If you'll bear with me, I will read the clause because it explains why I'm asking. The clause in the deeds that Councillor Garrett has viewed gives the right of way in common with the vendor and his successors in title and all other persons entitled to the right of way at all times over and along roads and footpaths leading from the property hereby convened to Parkhurst Road and to Forest Road for all purposes over and along the roads but on foot only over and along footpaths, subject to the purchaser or their successors entitled paying 1/100th of the cost of upkeeping the said roads and footpaths, with the exception of Clissold Road, which is the road we are being denied access on. All other residents have similar worded clauses.
Margaret, could I ask you to pose the question to Councillor Jones-Evans, please? Thank you for the background. That's very helpful.
The question I am asking is, what action can the council take to help us get our access back?
Thank you very much, Margaret. Councillor Jones-Evans.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ms. Cassell. You kindly gave the question in writing. I know we missed the official deadline, but officers were able to put a response together, which I'll read out. I've also met with Councillor Garrett as well.
Yeah.
So I think I've got time to read this out for you. I think everyone will be interested. Following issues raised by Councillor Garrett from the local community during the recent Horsebridge Hill roadworks, the council recently contracted the Ministry of Justice, the MOJ, via the Governor of Parkhurst and Albany prisons. A response was received from the Deputy Governor of HMP Isle of Wight, who advised the council that formal matters relating to the road closures should be directed to the MOJ Property Services team. MOJ recognised that the ongoing closure at Horsebridge Hill presented significant challenges to the Isle of Wight community. MOJ is currently developing longer-term plans concerning access and closures within the prison estate. They advise the council that for operational reasons, closing certain roads is a clear requirement set out by the prison, which has been under consideration for several years. The recent works at Horsebridge Hill made these closures more time sensitive than from an operational perspective. MOJ also advised that signage has always indicated these roads are private property with no public right of way, and as such, they may be closed without prior notice. Securing roads directly adjacent to prison walls and those providing unimpeded access to sensitive areas remains a long-standing priority on both operational and security grounds. The private status of these roads has been maintained and enforced over many years, despite efforts to keep certain roads closed over the past year, including installing official barriers and signage. These measures have unfortunately been repeatedly tampered with or indeed removed. They also reported incidents of vehicles attempting to bypass closures by driving across fields or around restricted areas near the old farm estate. Assurance was provided by MOJ that only these roads deemed operationally necessary have been closed, and that wider access across the prison estate would remain open where it's appropriate to do so. The emergency services are aware of these, proportionate, I beg your pardon. The emergency services are aware of these closures on our estate. MOJ remain grateful for the support shown by local residents in reporting criminal activity and assisting us in maintaining public safety. The council will continue to work with MOJ and the prison service locally to ensure support is provided to the local community, which would include reviewing the use of and the rights of residents in relation to the private access roads. You will be sent a copy of this, Mrs.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones-Evans. Margaret, have you a supplementary question or are you happy with it?
I do have, if that's all right with you.
I do.
On occasion, over the last few years, when there's been an accident outside of St Mary's or the prison, the road has been closed. And the police and Island Roads have redirected traffic up through Clissold Road, Standen Avenue onto Forest Road or vice versa. And we have been quite accommodating with moving our cars off of the road so that this can be accessed. However, if there is now an accident, there is no diversion available. Surely this is a health and safety risk.
Thank you, Margaret.
Thank you very much for that additional question. So I think there's some wider work to be done there, and I understand that our officers and our local member are aware of those issues and will work through them. So I can't give you a complete response to that now. It's quite involved, but we will get a written response to you. Is that okay?
Yes, it is. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. Thank you, Councillor Jones-Evans. Councillor Garrett.
Chair, under 4.80 and 4.101 of the Constitution, the Procedural Rule 16, and the section that allows the referral of a question to a committee, I think I hope my colleagues have heard here some really important issues that need to be explored. You'll be aware, of course, the council is in contract with the MOJ to upgrade the roads, has indeed done the street lighting already, and is closing in on being able to tender a contract for these roads, including Clissold Road, the road in dispute. So I would move that this question subject be referred to the Economy, Regeneration, Transport and Infrastructure Committee, and I would seek a second to that ahead of a vote.
Seconded, councillor Stewart. Happy with that? All in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Returning to the public gallery, could we have our next person to ask a question, please? Please state your name and who you wish to address.
Hi, it's Jenny Agricola. I'm not quite sure, maybe the chairman. The question is, what oversight is there and how does the Isle of Wight Council ensure that everyone working in their employ, including all their outsourced and subcontractors' workforces, is properly trained in equality, diversity and inclusion and duty of care training, including when someone brings a case against their employer, for example, for wrongful dismissal following a discrimination or other grievance, resulting in dismissal and continuing in victimisation and bullying.
Thank you very much. I'll actually refer that to the leader. And I believe there will be a written response because there's quite a lot of legality issues within that. That's not within my remit as the chair, I'm afraid.
No, I didn't know who to address it to, so I'm happy with a written response. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
It's a laughing matter, though.
Anybody else in the public gallery with any more questions? Could you just give us your name and have your question, please, and to whom it's directed?
My name is Marilyn Barrett, and I'd like to address this question to Councillor Chris Jarman of the Pension Committee, please. What percentage of the total investing monies not required for payment benefits, transfers and administrative costs is the £31,856,457, as was highlighted on the PSC database, that was invested in potentially complicit Israeli war crimes?
Thank you very much. Councillor Jarman.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the question. Firstly, we do not accept the figure which has been quoted. It has been examined a number of times, and the matter is coming up on the next meeting of the Pension Committee. So following that, I think we will be able to give a written answer when we have an up-to-date breakdown of the information. Thank you. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Councillor Jarman. Marilyn, that'll be a written response.
Thank you.
Have we anyone else in the public gallery? No? Thank you very much for engaging this evening. It's greatly appreciated. Item 4 on the agenda this evening, members' question time. Members' questions have been received. Time limit to the questioner is limited to 3 minutes initially and 2 minutes for a supplementary. Time limit to the respondent is limited to 5 minutes initially and 2 minutes for a supplementary. And this is about the questions. It's not open to debate as well. So the first question, Councillor Brodie to Councillor Jordan, please.
Thank you, Chair. I don't think I'll need any of those times, and I shouldn't think Councillor Jordan will need the time to respond either. But I think they're important questions. Firstly, given this government's intention to dictate a cabinet governance model for all local councils from next year, how can members of the Isle of Wight Council have any faith that our participation in their proposed mayoral devolution plans won't be similarly dictated by this authoritarian government rather than decided by the elected representatives of the Isle of Wight? Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Thanks for your question. I don't actually, do you all have the written replies? No, okay. So they'll be published, but I'll read the reply anyway. So your question raised a vital issue about the future of local governance and the role of elected representatives in shaping the island's council. The government recently announced announcement to legislate for a uniform council governance model across all councils, has understandably caused concern. This move, which will see the abolition of the committee system and the requirement for councils to adopt the leader and cabinet model, is framed as a way to simplify decision making and improve accountability. When it comes to devolution, particularly the proposed mayoral model, it's important to stress that councils still retain a significant degree of local decision-making power. The creation of a mayoral combined authority cannot be imposed unilaterally. It requires the agreement of all constituent councils. And what this means is that any decision to participate in a devolution arrangement, whether involving a directly elected mayor or another governance structure, must be debated and approved by the elected members of this council.
Thank you, Councillor Jordan. Councillor Brodie.
Thank you, Councillor Jordan, for your prepared response. No doubt put together by officers whilst you've been on well-deserved holiday. Do you really believe a word of what you've just read out? Do you really believe that this council will be able to make the decision on whether it participates in devolution? Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. I really do believe that because it is coming to this council for a decision, and there is not much that I, you, or any of the other members in this council will do about that. It will come into this chamber in front of us as members sometime in the autumn, perhaps October. We'll wait and see, but around October, November for the final decision. I am absolutely convinced that will happen, Jeff.
Okay, we will see. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Brodie. Thank you, Councillor Jordan. Councillor Brodie, it appears you're up again. Your question to Councillor Mosdell, please.
No, I've got a second one of the leader.
Oh, you hid that from a little list, didn't you? Councillor Brodie.
I'm missing my opportunities. In 2021, the political alliance you lead of independents and Green councillors, informally supported by Lib Dem and Labour councillors, took the leadership of the Isle of Wight Council as a progressive alternative to the previous 4 years of a Conservative administration. You are now the leader of that group and were recently re-elected as leader of the council on the casting vote of an alliance group chair with a Lib Dem deputy leader. Given the composition of your supporting political alliance, can I be sure that you will not also incorporate the reactionary Reform UK councillors into your political alliance, as has been suggested in some quarters? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Jeff. You'll be pleased to know that I don't have a prepared response to that. So the very brief answer, nonetheless, is that I have had no discussions. I don't know where those some quarters are, but I have had no discussions. I have not asked, and I have not been asked for any of that to take place.
A supplementary comment. Well, you'd be well advised not to, given their attendance record since they got elected. Their notable absence tonight of both the Reform councillors, their continuing regular absences from committees since the annual meeting. I think they're doing a disservice to the people of Lake North and to the villages of God's Hill, Ruckley and Arreton and Chillerton.
Thank you, Councillor Brodie. However,
Just that, Councillor Jeff, I always, with your years of experience and your knowledge, I always take on board your comments and advice. Whether I agree with them or not is another matter, but I do take them on board.
Councillor Brodie, once again, here's the hat trick.
Right,
For
thank
Councillor
you, Chair.
Mosdell.
And I will say I've very slightly amended my question, having taken your advice, which I did appreciate, and probably stop me getting into any legal trouble in the future. As well.
Let's hope not, eh?
So my question now is, Councillor Mosdell, how happy are you that the Reform UK member of your committee has recently been exposed as what some might call, quote, a rogue landlord, unquote, of private rented housing? Do you think it is appropriate that she continues as a member of a committee dealing with housing needs and public health when there is clear tribunal evidence of her letting unfit properties to people in desperate housing need? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Brodie. Not my full advice, eh? Councillor Mosdell. It's good enough.
Thank you. They did offer to write me a response, and I did say that I'm a grown up and I'm quite capable of answering without an officer writing for me. I think all committees, actually, all of us as councillors, should look into what the papers are. We always have to say if we've got an interest. If it's something that you are concerned about, then my advice to all councillors would be to take the advice from the monitoring officer if you're unclear of whether you should be voting or being on a paper. I will add to this, we do need to ensure that all councillors, now you're sitting on committees, are reading papers. That is really, really important at the moment. I have noted at the last meeting that there was some lacks of not actually taking or digesting, and we will always get officers to help. But my advice to everybody would be, if you're unclear on whether you should vote on a paper, just always check with the monitoring officer. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mosdell. Councillor Brodie?
No, I'm happy with that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Next question from Councillor Blake to Councillor Jordan. Ed, please.
Thank you, Chair. The Isle of Wight Council does not have any direct representation on the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Integrated Care Board, only a proxy representation of key roles covered by one of the four main authorities contained within it. The ICB has recently decided to cut funding to our Mountbatten Hospice without direct consultation of this council. This will have a severe knock-on effect, not only to the quality of care for islanders that they receive in the moment of need, but also on the financial pressures on this council. Will the leader, working with the chair of adult social care, write to the ICB and ask them to inform us of any plans they might have to make efficiencies in or cuts to services in advance of making decisions, so that are being made, so that the Isle of Wight Council may be able to contribute to the risk analysis?
Thank you, Councillor Blake. Councillor Jordan.
Thank you, Councillor Blake, for your question and for highlighting the importance of transparency and collaboration between the Integrated Care Board and the Isle of Wight Council. And we fully agree that it's essential for the council to be kept abreast of developments within the ICB, particularly where they relate to the health and well-being of our residents. So the ICB constitution rightly recognises the value of strong local partnerships, and we will write to the ICB to ask them to honour their commitment to work closely with local authorities to ensure alignment of priorities and effective delivery of services. As a council, we're committed to maintaining open lines of communication with the ICB and will continue to engage actively through our representation on relevant committees and forums, and in particular through our responsibilities for health scrutiny. And just to add to that, I did meet with, I represent the ICB earlier today and learn of their desire of a 10-year plan to work much more locally in neighbourhoods going forward and in partnership and with the voluntary sector. So I think there are some changes afoot, but Councillor Blake, we will write. Thank you for your question.
Councillor Blake, supplementary?
Chair, please, thank you. We learnt on the 4th of July, I believe, that through an article in the Health Service Journal, that the government intends to replace local authority representations on ICBs with mayoral or with mayors from mayoral authorities, and also realign the boundaries that which the ICBs cover to suit in with align with the mayoral authorities. Would you agree that this would be a further watering down of local government's representation, particularly Isle of Wight Council's representation on this committee, and therefore decrease the lobbying ability of this council on that board?
Absolutely. I'm not sure that the plans from the information I had, as I mentioned just now earlier today, were alignment. In fact, there is plans to reduce the number of ICBs over, therefore increase the geographical area. It is of concern, and in writing to them, we will raise this issue as well.
Thank you very much. Next question is Councillor Spink to Councillor Jordan. Councillor Spink.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, before I ask my question, I do have a point of order regarding the response of the leader to Councillor Brodie's first question concerning devolution. The answer seems to conflict, and I've managed to find it now because it seemed to me that it conflicted with the government white paper. The government white paper says, in effect, and I can read it verbatim if you wish, but summarising it, says this, that it will be up to individual local authorities to decide on devolution within a reasonable period of time. Once that reasonable period of time has passed, legislation will be passed to impose it on local authorities. So the leader's response was only half correct with respect. Do you want me to read it out?
Thank you, Councillor Spink. If you recall, it was a guess, but it's a pretty close guess, October of this year, when the decision will come to this council, maybe November. October, November, the matter of devolution will come to this full council for a decision. The government plans are for implementation in May 2026. What you're referring to would be for areas that have not decided by May 2026. We will have decided this year.
What happens if we say no?
The problem with that, if I may say so.
Members, this is not a question to be debated on. Your comment
is an inaccurate answer to a very important question.
You raised the point of order, and clearly 4.1371, Councillor may raise a point of order at any time, and the chair has to listen to it. And that it is in relation to an alleged breach of the Constitution and or procedure rules or the law. So Councillor Jordan gave you the answer previously, but it's not a topic of debate.
Incorrectly.
In your view, but it's no.
No, in view of the white paper. Do you want me to read it?
No, it's not. It's not for debate, I'm afraid, Councillor.
Okay, I've made my point. My question.
Please.
My question to the leader is, given the matters set out below, does the leader of the council agree that the advice given by the monitoring officer to Councillor Love, that he, Councillor Love, should leave the chamber and not preside over or vote in the election of a new chair at the full council meeting on the 21st of May was wrong in law and should be remedied without further delay? And the only one of the four reasons that I want to read out, because I don't want to take up unnecessary time, is the first one, because it's set out in the written question. First one is, this matter has been unresolved for almost 2 months.
Thank you, Councillor Spink, and thank you for accommodating that, because there are elements there of substance and speech or statement. So thank you. Councillor Jordan, a response, please.
And this is a prepared response. The issue raised is highly technical as it involves an analysis of legal principles. The constitutional provision that requires the chairman to leave a meeting during their own election in the old and new constitution, and the conflict between two leading textbooks. The current monitoring officer took the view in writing, when the previous chair stood for re-election that she could not remain in the room. The senior governance advisor took the same view during the election of the current chairman. My understanding is that the person Councillor Spink asked a simpler question about the issue has not articulated his reasoning for the advice he gave, and the firm will be seeking external legal advice on this. There are very often multiple views on legal issues. However, as a responsible council, we must ensure that we respect the monitoring officer's advice and look at these matters carefully and appropriately. Until there's a robust legal view to the contrary, status quo applies. That's the written reply.
Councillor Spink, carry on.
Do you have any Sorry. Do you have, Leader, any indication as to when that legal advice will be forthcoming, and how long are you going to leave the matter in abeyance?
I'm not aware of any due dates on any further legal advice.
Thank you, Councillor Jordan. Thank you, Councillor Spink. Moving on to the next question, which is Councillor Spink again to Councillor Jordan.
Leader, the resolution of full council on the 15th of January 2025 was that full council shall be responsible for, quote, the review and determination of the disposal of council-owned land. Against the democratic will of full council, however, the draft land disposal policy gave the power to dispose of council-owned land to the Policy, Finance and Resources Committee. Question: at whose instigation was the draft policy change to give the committee that you chair, Leader, the power to dispose of council-owned land?
Councillor Jordan.
The prepared response is the matter is being looked into formally by an independent investigator, and Councillor Spink will be contacted shortly about this. It would not be appropriate to discuss staffing matters in full council. I therefore have no further comment to make on this matter.
Please, Chair.
Councillor Spink.
I've already been contacted, and the proposed independent investigation is to be held in private, with only the findings being made public, not the evidence on which they're based, and there's to be no right of appeal. As leader of this council, do you consider that to be a satisfactory and democratic, open and transparent investigation?
We'll provide a written response to that question.
Thank you very much, councillors. Councillor Hendry, your question to Councillor Jones-Evans.
Thank you, Chair. Why were residents and local stakeholders not engaged earlier in the Medina crossing strategy, particularly before the option was sifted out and key choices ruled out?
Councillor Jones-Evans, thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Hendry. Just to be clear here, so the questions are asked to me in my role as Chair of the Economy, Regeneration, Transport and Infrastructure Committee. I do not speak on behalf of all my committee members. As you can imagine, there'll be different views across the committee, but I have sent them all of the questions ahead, so they're aware of this. I've got two responses here. One is that the response that's been collated by the director responsible, and then I've added on my own views at the end, so you're getting the best of both worlds, Councillor Hendry. But I say I'm speaking on behalf of myself and not my committee with my words, just to be absolutely clear. So from the Isle of Wight Council, the council has broad responsibility to look at realistic options for consultation to make the consultation meaningful. This has meant that as part of this work, the assessment needs to include, but not be limited to, legal considerations and affordable considerations. Accordingly, unaffordable options have been discarded and further sifting undertaken using the Department of Transport's early assessment and sifting tool, handily known as EAST, which is a requirement in the case where the council would seek support toward funding any next option. The public consultation transparently provides the full long list of options and reasons for why those projects have been removed from the shortlist. As part of the early engagement, the full list of options identified on the project were provided to key stakeholders, including Cowes Town Council and East Cowes Town Council, which has helped to shape what has been shortlisted. Whilst the consultation seeks specific views on 3 shortlisted options, there are open questions where individual views can be made both against what options have been ruled out and what other options they may feel need further consideration. That's from our director. This is from me. So I was part of the cabinet that voted last year for a replacement vessel to be procured, and I haven't changed my view in the interim. I have doubts about continuing with the current vessel, given the inherent design issues, frequency, public confidence and operating costs. It's difficult to evaluate a replacement vessel because we haven't got any details of a new vessel. However, I understand there are other views and I hope that they will be expressed in the current consultation. What island residents want is a frequent, reliable crossing for passengers, cycles and vehicles between the communities of East Cowes and Cowes, and I will work to make this happen.
Thank you, Councillor Jones-Evans. Councillor Henry.
Thank you, Chair. While a fixed crossing such as a bridge or tunnel was discounted due to being unaffordable, over time the ongoing subsidies or running costs to maintain the floating bridge could exceed the capital investment of fixed crossing. Will the committee consider the long-term value of potential roads across Medina rather than short-term gains? Thank you.
Thank you. Your permission. Thank you, Chair. We did discuss this briefly at the committee last week. This will be a large infrastructure project, and seeing as we are walking down the road to a combined authority, strategic authority, such large infrastructure projects would sit at that level. We do not have the finance to be able to put together deliver such a big engineering project as that, even if it were possible. And I think there have been studies in the past that have shown these not to be viable.
Thank you, Councillor Jones-Evans. Question number 7, Councillor Jones-Evans to Councillor Jordan, please. You're back.
Thank you. I didn't realise it was printed out. So my question is, there have been reports sponsored by the Isle of Wight Council into the procurement and operation of Floating Bridge 6. How would the information, lessons learned, including technical information, be assimilated into the current process for the Floating Bridge service? As an example, thrusters have been ruled out by engineers, yet they seem to be included, perhaps mistakenly, as an option in the current consultation. To the leader.
Councillor Jordan.
It's strange, isn't it?
Isn't it?
Councillor Jones-Evans answers a detailed question about the floating bridge and then asks me a detailed question.
I'm very interested in it.
But thank you for the question. I'll read out the prepared response. I think it's better. As per a request from the Solent Local Enterprise Partnership, SLEP. So that's interesting because it was the SLEP that originally funded the floating bridge, as you know. At the time, it was Councillor Stevens who managed to secure that funding as part of a bigger scheme of the waterfronts in East Cowes and Southampton. But it was a SLEP, and you make reference to a new strategic authority, which is in partnership with the successor to the LEP, the SLEP, the Solent Local Enterprise Board. Anyway, the responsible funding body for the Local Enterprise Partnership was the responsible funding body for FB6. And a Cabinet Office Gateway 5 review was undertaken by local partnerships in November 21. You've just told us that, I think. The full report with summary recommendations, which were set out in the scrutiny report dated 9th of March 2021, and the Cabinet report of 25th of October 21. In addition to this report, further reviews, including technical information, have been assimilated into the current process for determining improvements to the floating bridge service. Today, experts engaged by the council have been considering potential technical solutions, and whilst they have not yet identified a technical solution that will guarantee a complete fix for the chain depth issue, including the alignment of the vessel on either side of the crossing, due to the physical nature of the crossing, that's the tidal range and current flow, it would be premature at this stage to rule out the use of thrusters, either alone or in combination with the other technical solution in the phase option 2. It should be further noted that the same challenges of tidal range and current flow would also apply to a potential new vessel if a new chain ferry is the preferred solution. With regard to the supplementary question, this initial phase of work is looking to undertake a bottom-up costing exercise to understand what the affordability gap and surplus may be for each of the shortlisted options compared to the base case along a value for money assessment as required under Green Book guidance. The aim of which is to find a preferred solution is both affordable and offers value for money to the Isle of Wight Council. However, there cannot be guarantees that this will result in zero cost to the council or return it to a surplus. Subsequent work in phase B, which includes a future operational strategy, will better inform the ongoing operating costs and revenue stream assessment for the preferred option, with an aim to improve the future operational and commercial viability of the service. That's a prepared statement.
Chair, I think Councillor Jordan, talking of thrusters, he moved very quickly past my supplementary question. May I ask my supplementary question, just so everyone knows the context of the answer you've just given?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you. It's very short, don't worry. So thank you, Councillor Jordan, for that prepared statement. I'd be interested to talk off line, if you like, about the question as well. So my supplementary: how will the Isle of Wight Council demonstrate that a solution to the issues inherent in Floating Bridge 6 bring the current cost, the public purse of about £1 million to zero, or indeed return a surplus?
Thank you, Councillor Jones-Evans. As I think at the end I said, there can't be any guarantees on this. We need to find a solution for the crossing, for the vessel. A solution has to be found. There are some severe lessons to be learned. I think that there was some emails went round today. Councillor Nicholson helpfully commented, and we must learn from previous mistakes, but we must also address the problem that is the floating bridge, and we have to move forward with a scheme and a project that delivers that for us. And I know from previous work that I've been involved in on this prior to the committee system coming into place, that there are many opportunities, including a local build that Councillor Nicholson spoke about, a local build and a different operating model. So I think there's a long way to go on this, but this should come back to your committee, I have absolutely no doubt.
Thank you very much, councillors. We will continue on the floating bridge subject. Councillor Love to Councillor Jones-Evans. Carl.
Thank you, councillors. We're not a cabinet anymore, but yet we receive cabinet responses on behalf of the council. We are a democratic committee. My question was to all councillors and Julie Jones-Evans and has been changed. So it was discussed by Isle of Wight Council and widely accepted that the floating bridge must be replaced using ring-fenced funding from the settlement, and that this would be the key objective for the use of this funding to replace the floating bridge. Last week, a consultation was launched about replacing the floating bridge.
This included various suggestions on the project board's insistence. In fact, it only had 3 recommendations, which are absolutely unbelievable. It's not a consultation. One was to replace the floating bridge. The second was to modify it. And the third, can you believe it, was to do nothing. Let it lose 900,000 a year. I'll carry on with my question. Sorry. Project board insistence on this. One was to replace the existing vessel with a new floating bridge. Question: in order to save this council time, effort and money, will this council undertake to support option 1, which was the replacement of the existing floating bridge with a new floating bridge 7? If that is not the direction of travel, then please explain justification why. So 3, can you believe it? They didn't even ask a question about how can people with reduced mobility's access to the floating bridge be improved. Those are the sorts of questions that I would expect to see in a proper consultation. How can it be improved visibility from the river is another question. How can it be improved from a financial point of view? None of those questions have been included, nor has East Cowes Town Council, and it will either be confirmed or not, Cowes Town Council been asked to contribute to this questionnaire of the people who it most affects.
Councillor Love, can we allow Councillor Jones-Evans to answer, and then you're entitled to a supplementary. Councillor Jones-Evans, your response, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Love. And Councillor Love's quite correct. We no longer have a committee. We have a, no longer have a cabinet. We have a committee model that we work under, and we have new procedural rules. So if I just put your procedural rule 4.82 and procedural rule 14, that the questions on notice are to the chair, leave the council, or the chair of any committee or subcommittee. So that is why your question was changed, Councillor Love, and that is why I'm answering it. Okay, just to be completely clear, I'm trying to work within this new constitution. That's all we have to go by. I know it's not working for everybody, but we're almost like beta testing it. But this is where we're doing it together, and hopefully we can get it fit for purpose in the time we've got left. As Councillor Brodie said earlier, we will be to return to cabinet at some time in the next year, I'd imagine. So similarly to my other response, I will be giving an Isle of Wight Council response from the director, and then I will back it up with my own response if you find that acceptable, Councillor Love. The council has broad responsibility to look at realistic options for consultation to make the consultation meaningful. This has meant that as part of this work, the assessment needs to include, but not be limited to, beg your pardon. In March 2024, the Isle of Wight Cabinet agreed to replace the floating bridge and commission a new River Medina crossing strategy. It was also agreed to build on all the work and research done in recent years to ensure the project is comprehensive and can progress quickly and efficiently. However, for commissioning a replacement crossing, the council must ensure the process follows HM Treasury guidance, including consideration of options against the Department of Transport's early assessment and sifting tool, EAST, public sector procurement rules. The best value option is chosen, which is supported by a strong, up-to-date business case, especially if additional funds may need to be sought now or in the future. In addition, whilst the council may have ring-fence funding, this may not be enough to replace Floating Bridge 6 and the associated works, which makes it all more important to follow the EAST rules. This means all viable options for a new crossing need to be carefully assessed against a range of key criteria: strategic, economic, financial, commercial and managerial criteria, which is what this piece of work alongside the public consultation is seeking to deliver. This is my response now. I was part of the cabinet that voted last year for a replacement vessel to be procured, and I haven't changed my view in the interim. I have doubts about continuing with the current vessel, given the inherent design issues, frequency, public confidence and operating costs. Difficult to evaluate a replacement vessel because we haven't got details of a new vessel. I would have preferred that we'd progressed as per the democratic cabinet decision, but offers have been clear that we have to follow a wider and longer process in line with the public sector rules. What island residents deserve is a frequent, reliable crossing for passengers, cycles and vehicles between the communities of East Cowes and Cowes, and I'll work to make this happen as soon as possible. I feel we cannot stop the current public consultation now it has started. I urge everyone to respond to it to enable the process to move on. I did the consultation the other day myself, and there's a section which has got a ranking section. I don't know if you've seen it, where you can move the questions around to see what is most important to you. Frequency was not one of those options. I've since raised this with officers, and frequency now appears as an option in that ranking. We had reliability twice. Actually, as we know, something can be reliable. A broken clock could be reliable to tell you the right time twice a day. But what we need is to be able to have the frequency, which gives it public confidence. Thank you.
Councillor Love, supplementary.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your response, but I'm confused about what is the response, because we seem to have two responses on behalf of the council. One which I believe to be sincere, which is your own response. The other response is an officer's response on behalf of us, because we are a committee, are we not? So my question is really quite simple. It's a complete farce, is the process. It's costing us more money to do the process than it is to replace the floating bridge. It's absolutely ridiculous. Who makes the decisions about what goes into a consultation is one question. And the second is, will this council affirm by vote its support for option 1? Chair, I think I'm allowed to ask that question. I'm allowed to ask if this council will affirm by vote option 1.
I'll refer to the monitoring officer, but can we have your response first from Councillor Jones-Evans?
Yeah,
Thank you,
Councillor Love, I actually did ask that question of an officer regarding the consultation about who had written it. And the response I've got, I'll just read it out to you, because it's simpler, it's very short. Robertson Foster have been supporting the project around the engagement and consultation aspects. The various documents and communication elements have been with the project board, and ultimately the sign-off has been through our various senior, I won't name them, but our various senior officers here.
They should be named.
Well, I feel very uncomfortable naming officers in this. It's not appropriate. I will send you the email if you'd like. But say there's been at a senior level, a director and a director level. So that was the response there. And there were consultations with East Cowes and Cowes Town Councils.
Not about the consultation.
I'm not saying the consultation is correct. I'm not saying that's why I challenged it myself. What I'm telling you is what happened. And I sincerely believe we just need to move forward as quickly as possible through consultation. I urge everybody who is minded as you are, and maybe as I am, but everyone who's got a view on the floating bridge to answer the consultation, respond to it. That's the way we get everyone's views.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jones-Evans. Councillor PC Wilcox.
Can I just remind all members there's an all members briefing tomorrow about the floating bridge at 9:30 online. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Love. Councillor Brodie.
Point of order, really, for the future. We've had a number of questions tonight. Mine were all short to the point and quickly responded to, but we had a number of extensive and quite technical responses, particularly about the floating bridge. Now, I'm aware that the members who are responding have written answers in front of them, but they're not in front of the rest of the council, so that we can absorb them and take them into account before the meeting. When I queried this of an officer after a recent committee meeting, I was told they're not circulated in advance, but they can't trust one media outlet not to immediately post it on Facebook, etc. I won't name which one it is, but they're in the room beforehand. Can we not circulate in advance with a strict embargo that it is not to be used until a conclusion of full council? If they don't abide by that, then they don't get anything in future from this council. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Brodie. That is definitely something to note and for consideration. Thank you.
Point of order. My question still hasn't been answered. Can we affirm as a council by vote?
Councillor Love. we can't because there is no entitlement for other members to comment. And this element doesn't constitute council business this evening on the agenda. The business is laid out, so we have to move on. Thank you. Which brings us neatly onto agenda item number 5, which is announcements for the chair and leader of the council. I'm going to be very, very brief. First of all, I've done a bunch of things and turned up to various civic engagements. I've kept them under the, bless you. I've kept them under the radar because we were in a by-election process and there are rules surrounding that. But it's been an absolute privilege so far. There are 3 that I'll bring out. First of all, were the officer awards recently here in the chamber. And our chief executive, I had no idea, has been in Isle of Wight Council for 40 years. 40 years. So she picks up an award as well as many other deserving officers. And I do think that deserves a round of applause. They do incredibly hard work under very challenging conditions somewhere, and they are the backbone to how we function. So that was a real privilege. I'd like to extend my congratulations and support for those engaged in the Island Games in Orkney at the moment. They are keeping the island end up, nailing some gongs, and they are doing absolutely superbly. Following that one with much interest, and we'll be inviting them in for everybody to meet. I think that's absolutely superb. The Peach Games was a highlight over in Freshwater, over the West Wight. That was absolutely incredible to see youngsters engaged in some brilliant sporting activities. And I tried, but I was wearing a suit and just got hot and sweaty. But the one that stands out for me, it was my first engagement, was being invited to Haven Street to open a squirrel hide, which, well, I've done many things in my life, but it was absolutely riveting. What I didn't know, and they didn't tell me, is that my name is emblazed on a plaque now. And, well, if nothing else, judging my councillor Spink's direction of travel, the plaque may well outlast me. So it's been a great privilege so far. Challenging because the Constitution is brand new, challenging for us all, but I'm hoping we can all work together to achieve the goals for those that we actually represent. Thank you for the privilege and the position as well thus far. I'll hand over to Councillor Jordan for any report that he may have for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I will be a lot less than that. But just before I do, the Chief Exec's asked me to make it very clear that the employment in the council is a bit like professional football teams for young boys and young girls, particularly young girls these days, but young boys, where they scout them at the age of 5 and 6 and sign them up. And the Chief Exec has been very clear for me to point out that it was a similar process in the Isle of Wight Council when she started all those years ago. Well, there we are. Just finally for me, I have taken some leave over recent 2 or 3 weeks, 20 days or so. And I want to thank Andrew, Councillor Garrett, for stepping up into the role, which I know he did admirably and very efficiently on my behalf and on behalf of this council, representing us in numbers of external meetings, as well as chairing the committee meetings. I do thank him for that work and effort that he put in my absence. So thank you for that, Andrew. That's it for announcements for me, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jordan. Item number 6, report of the monitoring officer. Francis, if you please.
Thank you, Chair. Well, there are different elements to this report, councillors. I mean, the first bit was to do with, I'm sorry, I've got a bad throat and I've just put a lozenge in my mouth at the wrong time. So apologies, councillors. There are different elements to this report. The first one was meant to be a proportionality report because of the by-election at Wroxall, Lotherville and Bonchurch. Now, Councillor Jeffries, I mean, welcome to the council. But I mean, what's happened because he's joined the same alliance group, there is no need. There's been no trigger for us to review the proportionality. the calculations remain as they are. So that element of the report has not been considered. So that's as it is. The other elements of the report, there are two elements. Councillors will recall that on the 21st of May, a number of nominations were made to committees and outside bodies, but those were not complete. So what we have here is a complete set of nominations, as complete as possible in terms of the committees and the outside bodies. So councillors should have a sheet on their desk, which is the nominations we have now received. There have been some slight, this is for committees. Just to remind council, this is about nominations coming from the groups themselves. But there are some further, I mean, that's got all the nominations on there. And there have been some slight further amendments, which I've got in manuscript here, which was made very recently. And the first one is for the adult social, the first one in your list is the Adult Social Care, Public Health and Housing Needs Committee. The Conservative group, what you've got is number 3 is Councillor Henry as the member, and on the substitutes you've got Councillor Oliver. That's been switched around in manuscript, so this is what's going to be approved, which is Councillor Oliver becomes the member of that committee and Councillor Henry becomes the substitute. So that's a switch for that committee. For the other committee, the Appeals Committee, it's as it is on your list, but for the Conservative group, there's been a slight change again in manuscript from what you've got in front of you. Councillor, what you have as a member of the Conservative group for that committee is Councillor Nicholson, and the substitute is Councillor Brading. That's being switched again. So what happens is Councillor Brading becomes a member of that committee, the Appeals Committee, and Councillor Nicholson becomes the substitute of that committee. That's the change there. No, there is one more. Yeah, there is one more. This is your penultimate page on your the sheet you've got in front of you, and that's the Pensions Committee. You've got for the Alliance Group, you've got Councillor Christensen notified as a member of the Pension Committee, and that's being changed to Councillor Lever. So replacing Christensen for Councillor Lever. So those are the changes on that committee. There's two elements to that appendix. So that's the first appendix, which has got to do with committee places. The second part of the report refers to outside bodies. Now there is a narrative on page 45 of the report that picks up on some of the further clarifications that were sought at the last committee for the Augusta Wilder Almshouse Charity, the Isle of Wight Life Board, the Local Pension Board, the Send Partnership Board, Harrisbrook Castle Museum Foundation. So if you look at in your appendix, in the report you've got, there is a report, there's an appendix on outside bodies, which picks up on those I just mentioned just now. So what we're looking for is nominations for these outside bodies. And the first one is number 8, which is the Augusta Wilder Almshouse Charity, entitlement for 1 councillor.
Councillor Luciani.
I'd like to nominate Debbie Andre, please.
Councillor Andre, do you accept?
I accept the nomination. Thank you, Chair.
Do you have a seconder? That was reticence, Councillor Leaman. Put it up. Fully committed, please. Good man.
Agreed. Thank you. Thank you, councillors. The second one is number 10, Carisbrook Castle Museum Trustee Board. You've got 1 councillor nomination for that board.
Councillor Luciani.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Jonathan Bacon.
Accept, Jonathan? Good. We have a second. Who sounded second? Was that councillor PC Walker? Thank you. Right.
Is that agreed? Councillor agreed? Yeah, that's agreed. Yeah. Okay, and the next one's number 14, the Cowes Harbour Advisory Board. There is an entitled for one councillor there.
Karen again, councillor Lucioni.
Didn't get a question to anybody, so I've got a bit of time. I'd like to put forward councillor Paul Fuller, please.
Accept, councillor Fuller?
I'm happy to accept the nomination. Thank you.
Not quite happy with that tie, but never mind about that. Councillor Brading.
Yes, I'd like to nominate councillor Blake for that one, please.
Okay. Thank you, councillor Blake. Have you got a seconder, councillor Blake? Councillor Beston, thank you.
Okay, so just.
Yeah. So who? Okay. Right, so all those in favour for councillor Fuller for this appointment, please show. Thank you. For those against? Or for the other? Yeah, let's do it that way. For councillor Blake, please show. I had 16-14. Let's go again, shall we? Let's be sure. And none of you Pilates, all right? For councillor Fuller, please show. For councillor Blake, please show. Sold to the man with the dodgy looking tie. Congratulations, councillor Fuller. Right, back to Francis with the other bits.
Okay, it's we're at number 26 now, the Isle of Wight Local Pension Board. Again, there is one member appointment available. Pension Board. Yeah, Chair, if I can just clarify, we can have this is an employee representative, I understand. And I think the understanding is if we can't get a member appointment, we can look wider than members. But I think the first point is there a member interested?
Councillor Stewart.
I'd like to nominate councillor Garrett.
Councillor Garrett, do you accept?
I do. I've been considering this for a while. I have been a member of pension fund committees, so that should be helpful. I think it is important in the end that a councillor is the appointment for this. So although I wavered earlier when I was talking to Democratic Services, that's my long way of saying, yeah, all right then.
Very well sold, councillor Garrett, if I may. Seconded, councillor Andre. Any other nominations? No, perfect. Sorry, councillor Bowley.
Just a query regarding the committee membership. There's there's an inconsistency under the Appointment and Employment Committee. Right at the end, it says with an asterisk against it, the appointed leader, that's Councillor Jordan, acts as the chair by position, but is not detailed as a member of the committee from the Alliance Group. So therefore, either Councillor Fuller or Councillor Bacon will have to be removed in favour of Councillor Jordan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brodie. Councillor Fuller.
In that case, I'm quite happy to go in favour of Councillor Jordan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fuller. Councillor Brading.
Have a seat. I'm not talking about the, on a kind of point 37, the SEND Partnership Board. There was a question raised at the last meeting regarding whether I sit on that by right as chair of the committee. I'd just like to clarify at the last meeting, the terms of reference of that board were changed in so much as there are now 2 councillors represented from a chorus of 3. So it's myself, Councillor Andre and Councillor Love that are the 3 councillors, and 2 of the councillors will sit on that board, myself and 1 other, or the other 2 if I wasn't available. So we've changed the terms of references, now 2 from 3. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brading.
Yes, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, there are 3 on there. Yeah, that's right.
Right, it actually says 3 members. It's 2 members from a pool of 3.
Simon.
Chair, if I may, I think the papers I'm looking at say Councillor Quigley. Just to check with Councillor Brading, I think the other member is Councillor Love.
The other member is definitely Councillor Love. Yes, Councillor Quigley is not one of the nominated 3 potential members of that committee. Councillor Love, the last Councillor Love was elected. It's just a case of clarifying whether, as chair of the committee, I was on that by default. That was raised at the last SEND board, and we've changed their terms of reference. I just wanted to make that clear. So it's 2 members from a pool of 3.
Yeah, sorry, Chair. I think our understanding is that 3 members are nominated, but 2 will attend from that pool. Yeah,
That is correct. Yes.
Yeah.
So you're looking for clarification, Councillor Brading, that the 3 members are the 3 that are listed?
I was just clarifying for yourself. It was a point that was outstanding for the last council meeting. I was to go away and check with the board. I'm just reporting back that the board membership has agreed that, but the 3 names on here, Brading, Andre and Quigley, should be Brading, Andre and Love, not Brading, Andre, Quigley.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Those are the nominations for the committees and outside places. If I can just go to the recommendations. Okay, so thank you, Chair. That's the first part of the report. The second part is that I welcome.
Chair, do we have to vote on all the committees first?
We're going to vote on. So I'm going to propose.
Yeah, there's a second set of recommendations. The second one is that IWALC needed to give us their nominations for planning committee, and we have received those now. And there's Mike Lyons to be appointed as non-voting co-opted member of the appeals committee, and Councillor Steph Toogood to be appointed to serve as non-voting co-opted member of the planning committee, and Councillor Ian Boyd to be appointed to serve on the Health and Wellbeing Board. So if members are comfortable with that, then you can go to the vote, Chairman.
Thank you very much. So do we have a proposer for this, please? Councillor PC Wilcox. And a seconder to move it. Councillor Jeffries. First of all, do we have anybody else to comment on this before ahead of going to the vote of affirmation? I think people are getting a bit hot. We need a bit of a break. Okay, so all in favour, please show. Anybody against? Any abstentions? Thank you. I've had indications by eye contact on the floor that people are looking for a bit of a comfort break. So if we break for 10 minutes and then come back in. Thank you very much. Couple of minutes, members, and we'll crack back on. Couple of minutes. Thank you, members. Reconvening and moving on. Item 7, report of Chair of Children's Services, Education and Skills Committee. Councillor Brading, got it right this time.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. This report is to obtain full council's approval of the Isle of Wight Youth Justice Service Plan for 2025-2028. The Youth Justice Plan is a statutory requirement under the Crime and Disorder Act of 1998, and its endorsement is necessary to release payment of the annual grant. The 2025-28 plan was submitted to the Youth Justice Board on the 30th of June, following full engagement with our partners. So this is a retrospective approval, which is the way it's perfectly acceptable to do. The purpose of the Youth Justice Service is to work with children to support them to avoid offending and re-offending. It does this through its statutory partnership with the council, police, NHS and probation service, and obviously sits within the children's services area. It helps the Isle of Wight assess the health needs of all the children under our supervision and identifies how these needs can be addressed. This includes referral, for example, to Child and Adult Mental Health Service, commonly known as CAMS, and substance misuse provider where required. The Isle of Wight service works directly with the local community safety partnership to deliver key priorities for community safety, for example, serious violence duty, reduction of crime, antisocial behaviour and disorder, and reduce reoffending and prevention of radicalisation. As I said, it's a legal requirement for this council, after consultation with relevant partners and bodies, to produce and implement an annual youth justice plan. It's also written with contributions from children, parents, carers and victims who have been supported by our service. The full plan is attached to the report. So the recommendation is that the Isle of Wight Youth Justice Plan 2025-2028 is approved by this full council. Thank you. I'll look for a seconder, obviously.
Councillor Luciani, are you seconding? Thank you. Have we got any members that wish to comment on this, please? Councillor Andre.
Thank you, Chair. Okay. Members may be aware that the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Constabulary are the first constabulary in the country to be trauma informed. Are we confident that all of the partners that are involved in the Youth Justice Board have undertaken trauma-informed training? And I'd just like to highlight that last Friday, I was at our adult social care conference, which was on the theme of trauma-informed. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Andre. Any other comments?
With respect, Chair, it was a question to the Chair rather than a comment.
I'm sorry?
I posed it as a question to the Chair with your indulgence.
Of course.
But I'm happy to receive a written response in due course.
Councillor Brady.
Would you want each question answered individually or just any questions? I'll answer them all at the end. How do you want to do this? Yep.
Well, there doesn't appear to be any comments at the moment, Councillor Brading. So I stand corrected. Councillor Garrett. Well, I was going to say you could move straight to your right to reply, but if you wish to comment further, Councillor Garrett.
Just briefly, this seemed a very comprehensive document indeed. I particularly will highlight the section that discusses the Lionheart School. That's the rebranded and revamped Island Learning Centre. I met with the head teacher there in the last week or so. What I got a sense of from him and in discussing what the work that they are doing and the team that he has there of clear leadership, but of compassionate leadership centered around this very issue of trauma-informed approaches on things. So I would say to any colleague that if you have an opportunity, and I'm sure Mr. Hathley would welcome you there, to go and understand the work that's doing, because of course what that school is doing is ensuring students who otherwise would be in what we might call mainstream education are returning into mainstream education, well supported to achieve that as well.
Thank you, Councillor Garrett. Councillor Luciani. Karen.
I was very lucky, Chair, to been on the Youth Justice Board last year. Wonderful staff doing really good stuff, and the board is really good. But I'd just like to say I'm also the chair of the Police and Crime Panel, so I work very closely with the OPCC, so know about all the trauma-informed practice that they do, and they offer training as well. So if anybody wants some training on it, there is somebody that will deliver that for us.
Thank you, Councillor Luciani. Any other comments? Councillor Love.
Just to thank the officers for all the hard work they put into this document. It's no easy task producing documents, and hopefully the document will be read rather than sitting on shelves. Thank you.
Anybody else?
May I just respond to those 3 points, then we'll move to the vote?
Absolutely, Councillor Whiting.
I'll take them in reverse order. Councillor Ugani quite mentions the PCC, and I think the boards do work a lot closer together now, certainly better than they did in my previous role as cabinet member. I think there's much more of a joined up approach now, which is really good to see. Councillor Garrett raised the Lionheart. I visited several times the Island Learning Centre, as it was from my previous days as a cabinet member, but I have sought updates on the Lionheart School, and yeah, I'm pleased to hear that it's gone from strength to strength. And Councillor Garrett and I spoke earlier about where it now is. It is my intention to visit again very shortly. And to Councillor Andre's question, yes, it's a very important area, and all the agencies and all the partners have an ongoing series of training to make sure this vital area is covered on an ongoing basis. So with that, I'd like to move to the vote, the recommendation, please.
Absolutely, Councillor Brading. All in favour, please raise. I'm happy to go with that. That's all right. Against? Any abstentions? Councillor Chalmers, thank you. Item 8 on the agenda, report of the Chair of Licensing Committee, approval of street furniture and pavement licensing policy. Councillor Bacon, please.
Thank you, Chair. So this report is seeking formal approval of the street furniture and pavement licensing policy, which is included in the papers. I think it's fair to say this has had a slightly tortuous route to get to this stage of formal approval. 2 consultations have taken place. When the results of the first one were placed before the licensing committee last year, issues were raised about the policy in respect of A-boards on the high street, and that necessitated a second, more focused consultation, which took place in August last year, the results of which expressed a strong opposition to greater licensing of A-boards. Following that, the policy in the form that it now exists was then brought to licensing committee. It was approved after some discussion by licensing committee in January of this year. As it has been a subject of comments, those who are interested will find details of the discussion in relation to A-boards, both in the covering paper, pages 133 to 134, and the details in the policy are in sections 4 and 5. Essentially, what we have now is a situation where regulation applies to A-boards which are over 1.5 metres in height, but not those underneath, although there's a general responsibility out with the bounds of this policy for the placement of A-boards on the highway if they cause obstruction, etc. And that's down to Island Roads to investigate and enforce if appropriate. So the policy, having been extensively consulted on and reviewed twice now by the licensing committee, it comes before us for formal approval. The recommendation, therefore, is that at paragraph 5 on page 129, that this council approve and adopt the revised policy as approved by the licensing committee in January of this year. I put that forward and look for a seconder.
Councillor Andre. Thank you. Have we got any members that wish to comment on that? Councillor Jones-Evans.
Thank you. As previously, so I've got non-pecuniary interests as Vice Chair of Newport Business Association, also member of the Chamber of Commerce. Just they've made a comment as well. I'm actually at odds with some of the comments made by the business community. I come at this from having the town centre as my ward, and also living in town centre, you know, most of my life as well. Whereas we have our pavements and our squares are shared surfaces that everybody uses. And I have had complaints over the years for people that have got a sight impairment, mobility issues, or maybe just, you know, parents with, you know, buggies and so on, that find it actually hard to navigate around the town centre sometimes. And I'm all for equality. So I am at odds with some of the responses. There is a response there that someone has commented on. So that's what I propose to the licensing committee, that we look to have some kind of you know, more guidance around it, as such other places, like for instance Liverpool have got a really good policy which does help make sure there's that space for people. Now it says here in the policy that Island Roads are able to remove barriers. In my experience, that's actually a very long and cumbersome and not always successful outcome. So I'm here speaking on behalf of my residents that maybe, you know, aren't writing in, aren't up at the gallery, but the ones that I know every day find it difficult to navigate. So that is why I can't support this particular policy, even though I'm a member of a licensing committee. I remember the business association, they'll probably all get shot down in flames, but they know how I feel. I try and see it from a different point of view, that it's all of us to share. And by having some, you know, formal regulation around it, it means that everyone gets what they need. Businesses get a space they know they can confidently put an A-board out. And similarly, people who have mobility issues know that they've been thought of and they can navigate their way around the town safely. So that's the reason I'm taking my stance on this, Chair, this evening.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jones-Evans, Councillor Lucioni, and then Councillor Brodie. Karen.
I'm going to say the dreaded C word, cabinet. I was the cabinet member for when this was going through. I'm happy with the consultation with the business community. So I will be voting for it. But I do think that maybe some conversation needs to happen with Island Roads to make sure that they are being watched. I did have a shop about 20 years ago when, well, less than that, sorry, 10 years ago when Island Roads first came in, and they certainly were doing it then, checking A-frames, but let's make sure that that's being done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lucioni. Councillor Brodie, Jeff.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And as a Newport councillor, I have to agree with Councillor Jones-Evans, and I will be voting against this for precisely the same reasons that she's outlined. I regularly get comment from residents, and particularly a couple of unsighted residents, regarding the indiscriminate use of A-boards around the town. I've always had a problem with the whole licensing system, because it's a waste of time making representations, in my view. I made representations about the extension of tables, etc., into a corner of the Newport High Street and St Thomas's Square, which were largely ignored, to be frank, once Island Roads had looked at it. I have no confidence whatsoever in our PFI contractors, Island Roads, that they will react to anything. As we all know, this council is in significant dispute with them anyway. But I have no confidence that they will react. I know that Councillor Jones Evans, as the local member, has had regular issues with this over the years that I've known her as the councillor for Newport Central. I think the policy largely ignores the interests of people, particularly who are unsighted. Imagine trying to get around Sir Millennium or Ryde. It's probably the same in Ryde. I hardly ever go to Ryde because it's the dark side of the island as far as I'm concerned. But, you know, it's probably exactly the same in terms of airports. But where we have squares, you know, notable squares in Newport, St Thomas's and St James. St James's Square is hell on earth for somebody who's unsighted now. I mean, even as a sighted person, it's almost like a slalom course through it. Now, I know that's good for the local businesses, but they need to have more regard for people who are unsighted. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Brodie. Some sage observations. Councillor Quirk, Chris.
As one who actually is currently partially sighted, I actually have a lot of sympathy for the issue of getting around A-boards and street obstructions generally. However, I actually do support the non-charging for them because our high streets and our sort of shopping centres are struggling. And I think it's important that we actually don't put barriers to their success. And so I will be voting in favour of this.
Thank you, Councillor Quirk. Do we have any more comments on this? Councillor Love. Carl.
Yes, I too have problems with it because I don't think there's any enforcement really for these obstructions. There doesn't seem to be any enforcement, and there's a complete lack of courtesy sometimes about how these things are just placed in places. We need to stick to our guns. We need to be assertive about this, not because we are being obstructive, but because we are trying to protect the health and well-being and safety, particularly of partially sighted people and those with reduced mobility. We don't have enough drop curbs. We don't have enough proactive measures, and we seem to have come to a halt in being able to implement new measures which enable accessibility to people. So I am minded to vote against this as well.
Thank you, Councillor Love. Councillor Jones.
Yeah, I know I've already spoken, but as a
You
point
have.
of personal explanation, will you allow me just to say one more thing? It was just regarding the, there was a quotation of a figure for a licence fee in some responses from the Business Association. That was never a proposal from that was something the media picked up. So there was never any, that was an example that somewhere else had put forward. So I think that was over 3 years as well. So as point of explanation, that was not what I put forward this evening. Thank you.
Thank you for your explanation, Councillor Jones Evans. Anybody else? Councillor Bacon.
I think that's mostly comments rather than questions. The figure that is cited in some of the responses, I think it's fair to say that was, I think, came out in questions in a licensing committee. The thing one must remember about licensing is it's self-funding. If it does work, it charges a fee to pay for that. And it may have been somewhat off the cuff and certainly not a formal figure, but I certainly recall between £200 and £300 was mentioned as a likely fee if a fee were to be charged, whatever the outcome, obviously. And that was, as noted on page 134, a major feature of the responses, of which there were 67, which is a high number in a matter like this. I think that should just be mentioned. That is all in the paper. I do note the comments, and as chair of licensing, I will certainly speak to the head of department about how we liaise with Island Roads. There is an issue there with many of these things. A rule is one thing, but enforcement is another. And we do have a slightly split situation here, and I think that is something certainly to have regard to going forward. But other than that, I have made the recommendation. It's been seconded, and I ask we go to the vote now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bacon. If there's no further comments, we shall move to the vote. So all those in favour, please show. Anybody against? Any abstentions? Thank you, sir. Part B is the approval of the Gambling Act Statement of Licensing Policy. Councillor Bacon again, please.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I'm going to be very brief on this one. As noted in the paper, this is again a request for a formal approval of something that's been through licensing committee. I don't think there are any issues that have been raised of note during its passage to get to us here. And so therefore the recommendation is the full council approve and adopt the revised gambling licensing policy for 2025 to 2028. And I look for a second.
Seconded by Councillor Stevens. Thank you very much. Would any members like to comment on this one? Councillor Garrett.
Chair, thank you. Yeah, I think this is a reasonable policy, but one thing I have become very aware of very recently, and you may have noticed it yourself. I know it's out with this policy, although there is discussion around and have been responses upon the advertising of gambling. But I think it is important to note that advertising of gambling, I see it on television. Sometimes you see two adverts in one advertising break. The idea that advertising of gambling and gambling problems is not linked, to me, seems a very thinly evidenced assertion from the industry. And whilst this policy can't do anything to diminish the number of adverts that people might be seeing on various platforms, it is very, very important that we note that gambling is something to which people become very vulnerable in certain circumstances, particularly those who are already in poverty. And this council has given great consideration to those who are in poverty. So if there is any way that any of us in this chamber can lobby central government to further to restrict the amount of advertising that is there, that I think would be a great step forward. But the policy itself, I think it is a reasonable policy for what we're seeking to achieve as a council.
Thank you, Councillor Garrett. Any other comments on this? Councillor Stevens.
I think that Councillor Garrett summed it up quite well, very well indeed, in actual fact. And I did approach central government when I was an LGA board chair for culture, tourism and sport. And in actual fact, they did listen. And instead of someone gambling away on a fruit machine or a slot machine or whatever you call them in a betting shop, they actually made a policy that, okay, you reduce the amount of money on what you can put at any time. And so, yes, local voices at a national level do help this thing. And I think, quite honestly, across this council, we can actually take this even one step forward and put it back through central government. I'd like to see it come through from this council to actually say that we are wary of what gambling does to our residents and our people on the Isle of Wight, and we need to make sure there are stricter controls over such things as advertising and marketing. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Stevens. Any further comments? No. Councillor Bacon.
Thank you, Chair. I'm more than happy, as has been said, what the comments are to some extent out with the realms of the policy that is before us, but I'm more than happy to have a conversation with the relevant heads of the licensing department and see if that is something what is suggested by Councillor Garrett and Councillor Stevens can't be the subject of discussion at a future licensing committee meeting, and we can see if and how appropriate recommendations or questions and requests could be put to Westminster to see if there anything can be done, or I'll have a word later. Anything can be done, or anything can be progressed in light of that. I suppose in all fairness, I do like to always have the balance view. If anyone is interested, the views of the Betting and Gaming Council were received as part of the consultation process and are contained as Appendix 2 to the paper. I'm not in any way countermanding the comments made by the two previous speakers, but there are some interesting factors in there about gambling and maybe comparisons between the UK and other areas, which might be of interest for people who whose concerns are perhaps inflamed a little by what we've just heard. But as I say, I'll just put that as it may be of interest in balance. But I have put forward the recommendation and it's seconded. So again, I'd seek we go to the vote. Thank you.
Absolutely. Let's go to the vote, please. All in favour, please raise. Yeah. No, to be on this, no, you're absolutely right. Yeah. That's fine. Anybody against? And any abstentions? So, thank you. Final item for this evening, report of Policy, Finance and Resources Committee, approval of land and property asset disposal policy. And this is being introduced by the leader, Councillor Jordan.
Thank you, Chair. As I mentioned earlier, Councillor Garrett chaired the very admirably the last meeting. I will defer to him to present this report as it was an item on the agenda that of the meeting he chaired.
Councillor Garrett.
Thank you, Chair. Colleagues, taking Councillor Mostar's earlier point about reading papers, I'm sure you have read this paper in great detail. I know certain councillors definitely have paid great attention to this. This arises from a resolution of full council earlier this year. We have finally arrived at this point. It's been through Policy, Finance and Resources Committee twice, once to defer, send it back for some revisions. Those revisions came forward in the debate and discussion at Policy, Finance and Resources Committee that I chaired. There was some concern about some further revisions, so we made a recommendation to allow that to happen. As chair at that time, I stressed, of course, that it would come to this full council and that it would still be open to amendment. It is something that full council wanted from January. It is something that full council will now consider. But I will formally move the two recommendations that are there, that the full council were very keen that we note the risks associated with this policy approach outlined in that. Former chair of audit and governance, you'll no doubt understand I'm very concerned about risks. Risk is not necessarily a bad thing. It's just about mitigating risk sensibly. So note those risks, and that we agree and adopt the land and property asset disposal policy as part of the policy framework. Members, of course, you may seek to amend that, but first I'll seek a seconder upon that.
We have a seconder, please. Councillor Quirk, thank you.
It's the right time. I hope it is. I seek to amend the policy.
Okay.
All members should have a copy of the amendments. It was sent by email this morning. They're just two relatively short amendments, and copies very kindly provided by Marie of Democratic Services for you all this evening. I would just like to very briefly explain why I believe these two amendments are needed. And that is really to bring it into line with the resolution of full council on the 15th of January. I have to say that it's been a huge struggle, quite frankly, to have the policy reflect the resolution of full council. And it was only until recently that the policy was changed and then there was some opposition to it, to include the resolution of full council, which was undoubtedly the case, and it's written out, that it was to be full council who would decide land disposals. Somewhat mysteriously, the draft policy, which went through 6 drafts and a corporate team meeting, was drafted and presented to the Policy and Finance and Resources Committee, giving that committee the power to dispose in defiance of the full council resolution. I've asked senior officers and councillors why that occurred.
Councillor Spink, can I just bring it
And I
back on track a
heard,
little
I
bit,
got
please?
no reply.
Councillor Spink, I'm going to ask the monitoring officer to intervene here so we can get back on track with the amendment and have it.
Well, you normally ask him to intervene when I speak,
Councillor,
Chair, so off you
No,
councillors, it's not normal for the monitoring officer to intervene like this. But this is a council meeting. This is a council meeting to decide and consider a policy, not a witch hunt of officers. This is not appropriate for that to be discussed here. And my advice very strongly to members is that this must stop. And if it continues, then I'll ask the chairman to adjourn the meeting so we can go into private session and I can give you proper legal advice of the risks you are running. Thank you, Chair.
Have to go to the amendment.
I've already said all that I want to say. I go to the amendment, please, on the basis that it will bring the policy in line with the will of full council. So my amendment that I propose is paragraph 6.15 is deleted, and to paragraph 6.2, the lettering in red, other than the and which is crossed through, the lettering in red is added. So those are my suggested amendments.
Councillor Spink, do you have a seconder for that? Councillor Chalmer, there was a couple behind you. Thank you. So we are now open to discuss your amendment, Councillor Spink. Would anybody wish to comment on the amendment? Councillor Jones-Evans.
I have a really important question, I think, which is, has the author and the sponsor of the paper, the policy, have they assessed the amendments that just been brought forward and looked at the risks? Because this policy talks a lot about risks. It's in fact, risk is mentioned in 2 of the options. I'm really concerned that we're having again an off the hoof amendment, and I have no idea how that is going to affect the risk. This is a risky policy. Make no bones about it.
Thank you, Councillor Jones-Evans.
That's a question. That was actually my speech. I've got a speech to make as well, but maybe I'll do that later on when we get to the amendment. Is then we get to the actual substantive discussion. If that's okay.
Absolutely. Councillor Brodie, Jeff.
Thank you, Chair. Before I say something about the amendment, can I just heartily endorse what Mr. Fernandez has said? It is not the role of councillors to try and victimise and stage a witch hunt of officers of the council. If you have a problem with them, and I say this to the 2 male members of the Empowering Islanders group, if you have a problem with staff, raise it with the head of paid service, the chief executive. That's what I do. It's what experienced councillors do. It's what newer councillors do. It is becoming tiresome and quite disturbing the number of times that councillors, now I'll name them, Jarman and Spink, attack staff in this chamber. Moving on. And then, ironically, I support this amendment entirely. Entirely. I think a motion went through full council comfortably enough for this council in January that the decision making would be made by full council, and it would, in the word, be in the business of promoting the provision of socially rented housing when we disposed of land. And I'm a member of the Policy, Resources and Finance Committee. I missed the first one where they deferred because I was on leave arranged before I was compelled to be a councillor for another year. And at the next one, a majority of us took the view that the policy that was before us was not in line with that motion and that this sort of amendment should be made to it. I subsequently understand that amendments were then made at a very senior level of this council, naming no names, no, I'm not interested in victimising or anything like that, to that policy, which has led to this amendment. All we're trying to do here, as far as I can see, well, I hope we'll do today, is to pull this back to what is allegedly one of the main aims of this council's corporate plan, is the delivery of some affordable and social rented housing on the island, which we have signally failed to address over all my years on this council, frankly, apart from the odd large planning application like the one in my ward at Pan Meadows. I will be supporting this, and I hope a majority of you will, because you took the decision in January. Nobody's tried to reverse that democratically and openly in full council. It all seems to be done behind the scenes. I urge everybody to respect the views of the majority of the Policy, Finance and Resources Committee, is to go along the lines suggested by this amendment and to support it tonight. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Brodie. Councillor Adams.
I also will be fully supporting this. I believe the Isle of Wight Council are being acting with a dereliction of duty. We have provided nothing for people that desperately need houses. It's also, in my view, the land is our most valuable asset. We keep disposing of it. We talk about risk. Everything carries risk. We risk our life when we walk down the stairs, get in the car and drive home or get on a bus. Everything carries risk. When we talk about the risk, everything is related to finances. But I would say, can we afford not to do this? We own the land. At some stage, we need to start generating cash for the Isle of Wight Council and the people of the Isle of Wight that we are meant to serve. And I can't see any better way of doing that than investing on developing the land that we already own. And we keep it fully in-house and bring that profit back into the council and then move it forward and drive it forward and develop another step, another piece of land. We need to start delivering something because something has gone wrong.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Thanks, Dave. Councillor Mosdell. Claire.
Thank you. I will be supporting this amendment, and I do have to say that, Branston is in my ward, and it is one of a shining example of what good really looks like and what we can do as a council. So we have delivered, we just haven't delivered enough. I do have a request though, that please can I be removed from any emails that are being, all member emails that mention staff and officers. I do not want to receive them. I don't think it's appropriate at all. I'm really glad that I'm being paid attention to, because clearly what I have to say isn't important at the moment. Maybe I won't support it.
Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm torn on this. I fully understand our commitment to providing social housing for our residents that need it. Okay. But the message I'm getting is we can't dispose of that bit of land because we want to put social housing on it. That may not be the financially best choice. It might be better to sell that and then use the income somewhere else to provide social housing. That's all I've got to say. Thank you.
It's a very sage point, Councillor Ward. Councillor Robertson and then Councillor Quirk.
And Joe. Thank you, Chair. I'll be supporting this amendment. I think the council historically has been too ready to dispose of land that could be used for social housing. This policy amendment doesn't mean that land cannot be disposed of, but I think that anything that puts the council requirement to go through councillors, and it's councillors who are in charge of whether land is disposed or not, is a good thing, because it's all too easy for the council to get rid of some of its best assets, which is land it owns, which could be used for housing people who need social rent. So I'll be supporting it.
Thank you, Councillor Robertson. Councillor Quirk. Chris.
I propose the original motion that this is based upon. The intention of that motion was to have transparency in what is happening about the council land, which was sadly missing previously. It doesn't mean that you have to build affordable housing on every piece of land, but it has to be, what it does mean is you have to be open about what you're doing, and if you're taking money in, that you're getting good value for money, and how that is actually then being spent somewhere else. So it's not stopping the sale of land. It's not stopping the sale of land for other good purposes, but it is actually giving the whole chamber a transparent view of what is going on and what is happening with the money and whether we are getting value for money. And I think that's the important bit. The risk of a delay is minimal. And if it's really that important and it's such a big deal, you call an extraordinary meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Kirk. Thank you, Chris. Councillor Love. Carl.
Thank you, Chair. I shall be supporting this amendment as well. I have a family in a house where there are 5 children and 2 adults all facing eviction, and there is virtually nowhere for them to go. They need a 3 or 4 bedroomed property. They live in a property owned by a councillor, which is in an appalling state, absolutely appalling state, and we have nothing. Therefore, it is for this council to make those decisions, and we can have very positive discussions about ourselves, about how a particular piece of land is or isn't used. We can still do that despite whatever we do here, but we have to act sooner rather than later. And we're not doing very much. So therefore, it is for this full committee to discuss the very limited pool of land that we now have available, because we don't have lots and lots, about how it should and shouldn't be used. So, so I shall be supporting it.
Thank you, Carl. Councillor Stevens. Ian.
Thank you. It warms my heart that some councillors who have actually turned around and said, don't develop that bit of land for housing, don't, some moldwood, don't do that over there because of the road infrastructure isn't any good. We have to be considered in our approach. I don't think we're being considered in our approach without looking at any amendment that comes into this chamber being checked for impact assessment, what is going on at this moment in time, and I don't know, but the officers are working away 100% professionally, not whimsically and thinking of greater things, but actually taking things forward in the appropriate manner. It might be slow. I've hit walls. I thought it was going to be damn well easy, and you know I did. I had 4 years of that and 4 years of people ranting at me from the top table down through the chamber. It is not that easy. The figures, as Councillor Ward has said, got to stack up. The figures have got to stack up. And when you're talking about building a house at X amount, and you've got a bit of land, you've got to put in the services, you've got to put in the infrastructure, etc., etc. It doesn't come easy. And out there, we have partnerships, we have people that are willing to work with us. And that is where if we start to go back to full council all the time, I'll say all the time, we will end up with a lack of confidence in the marketplace, a lack of confidence with our potential partners. And I think that's what we've got to guard against here. I was at the committee meeting where this was moved forward last week, and there were all sorts of amendments coming through from various councillors.
and putting the officers under pressure to write up the amendments. And I know the chairman was very, how can I say, considered in his approach with it. But we had things going into this policy last Friday, and then even today, we've got more things coming in. Let's get a solid approach. Let's get something that we can work to and build on. This, unfortunately, I can't agree with it. I like the motion at full council back earlier this year. I think it was a good way forward. But let's get the house in order before we take it forward. We've got professionals, we've got officers who are working well with potential partners out there. And if we can't do it on our own, then let's get into partnerships. Let's start to see where we can make those where we can make the finance add up and become a viable proposition. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens. Councillor Lever, Joe.
Thank you, Chair. I'm a little bit lost because it feels like we strayed away from the amendment and we're now debating the substantive. So I'd appreciate if we're going to debate the amendment, let's keep it to the amendment. And personally, I'm not 100% sure why this is necessary, because essentially the removal of step 1, it's already included in step 2 anyway, because it talks about the corporate plan there. So it just feels a bit unnecessary, this amendment, to myself, unless I can be convinced otherwise.
What I've asked for, Councillor Lever, it's a great bit of discussion. Obviously, when an amendment comes across the table, you take advice on whether there's a huge risk attached to it. Personally, I don't consider it, or rather, I have been advised that there isn't, but I will refer to the Chief Exec on this, and then we'll move forward with the vote on the amendment, and then we can discuss the actual motion itself.
Thank you, Chair. Have you got a copy of the amendments so that I can? The points made in paragraph 6.15 were included simply for referencing the fact that this policy and its implementation does sit alongside the corporate plan. And your corporate plan is your kind of prime document for delivering your priorities. Having considered the suggested amendments, however, there is no objection to the proposed amendments. They are appropriate. They do not prevent you, when looking at the disposal of land, to properly also consider competing corporate plan priority interests, which you've already discussed and debated this evening anyway.
Thank you. I did have requests from Councillor Fuller, Councillor Boyd and Councillor Lucioni, but I am conscious of time, so I'll cross across to Councillor Garrett.
That's very kind. Mine was to speak as a speaker to the amendment, not as somebody who had moved the motion. All I would say is the words of the Chief Executive are very helpful there. My analysis of the policy is that there are several mentions of overarching purpose. All but one references the need for social rented housing. I think you could live with this policy either way. It would achieve the same ends, but I think by accepting the amendment, you take away a tension between looking for capital gain and the social rented housing. I think the overarching theme is there, and it's that word overarching that I was searching on to understand what impact I felt this would have. So I think, all members, I think you can accept this without it having any overall impact, as the Chief Executive has kind of outlined, but it clarifies the policy and makes sure that the overarching purpose being discussed is social rented housing, and that there is no other overarching purpose being referenced, but it will be something that we will look at, whether there is other things. Bearing in mind, there are actually other paragraphs which refer to things around regeneration. We must remember that social rented housing is extremely important, but for those in all forms of housing, particularly those in social rented housing, is the need to have a decent, well-paid, long-lasting job as well. And regeneration can achieve that as well. So we will always have that in mind. I'll leave it at there, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Garrett. Councillor Fuller, do you bring a differing view to what has been discussed so far? Again, I am conscious of time. It's been fairly balanced debate.
I think, you know, this is a really, really important policy. I have gone from one side to the other on this, and, you know, from my point of view, I've asked lots of questions. I think what concerns me is how will this policy, with its risks, speed up the delivery of housing? My concern is that by tying people up in red tape will make it more difficult for social affordable housing to be created. And I'm concerned that providers, housing providers, may choose to walk. We don't have a finite supply of developers on the island to be able to do what we want them to do. And it is a worry to me that by bringing through this policy, it may make it difficult and it may take away the ability for developers to choose what they want to do. And by doing that, we will restrict the amount of houses that we can potentially provide in partnership with other organisations for our local residents. So it is with a reluctance that I cannot support the policy in its current form. It needs more work doing to it, but until that work gives more choice and the ability for developers to be able to work with this council rather than potentially walk away, I cannot support it at this stage. Apologies.
Thank you, Councillor Fuller. I feel there's been quite enough discussion on the amendment itself, and we can continue this discussion afterwards. So I'd like to propose that we move to the vote on the amendment.
Yeah, point of order. I thought the proposer had accepted the amendment, and therefore we will move.
I've had no indication of that.
No, I'm not indicating acceptance. I think it is important that the council, as I set out at policy, finance and resources, it is for the council to own its decisions. And this is going to be an important decision. I think it is right that all members get a chance to indicate one way or another.
So we're going to move to the vote on the amendment. So all in favour, please show. Simon, can we have a count on this, please? (21). Thank you. And against? Any abstentions? Thank you very much. That's carried. We can proceed with the rest of the debate. There's been quite a lot of conversation so far. We have 20 minutes to run. Councillor Jones-Evans.
Thank you. And now we're going to debate this is now the substantive motion now, and we'd love to debate that. Thank you, very just get clarity on that. Completely agree with the sentiment of what we're trying to achieve here. Yes, we need more social rented housing, no doubt about it. We have to have a mixed approach to providing housing. We also need to look at employment land. We need to look about building our growth here. We need to build ability to grow the wealth of our residents. So we actually eventually we need less social housing. That's what we want. And by giving up all our land potentially to housing, social housing, we're really limiting what we're able to do as an island. And let's face it, we have not much land to do what we want to do with. And we have to take this mixed approach. Just look at Branston Farm, for instance. I'm sure Councillor Mosdell was really, really proud of what they've achieved there, and she was very heavily involved in that. You've got mixed tenure, you've got a business park, and you've also got some fantastic housing, which we did in partnership with Vectis Housing. Fantastic. We need to do more of that. But I'm really concerned this policy has seen a problem that we want trying to solve, but gone straight to a solution rather than try to work through what is the best way to achieve that. And it's easy done. We all do it all the time. I know what to do. Let's carry on and do that. But we have got a housing crisis, and actually part of the housing crisis isn't the fact that we're not building enough houses. It's some of it dates back to the to the 1980s with with the government allowing our social housing to be sold off and not replaced. You know, we've got an inherent problem, and wealthy landlords have helped cause this housing crisis. The buy to let, you know, mortgages, they have helped. We've got most of the housing, the private housing in this country is actually owned by, sorry, the people that people rent. It's by very small landlords. They only have 2 or 3 or 4 houses. That's part of our problem. And I think we are trying to, it's a sledgehammer to crack a nut, really. It's a very tough nut to crack, but I don't believe this policy is going to do it. I've never seen so many risks written into a council report. And this is written by a professional property officer, someone I know who's worked in the private sector and in the public sector as well. And I listened in to the policy and finance resources committee the other day, and I was quite horrified to hear about how much the policy had been written by members, and then all the amendments that were being put forward, they had to be put forward in one day. They weren't going back to the committee. I feel we're really rushing forward. We have got risks inherent here. I think it's going to have the exact opposite effect. It's going to put off developers. It's going to tie our hands. We won't be able to develop as we need to. So I won't be able to support it. In fact, I will go for option 3 on page 203, paragraph 18, option 3.
Thank you, Councillor Jones-Evans. Thank you. Councillor Bacon, and it's Councillor Brady and Councillor Lever. Councillor Bacon.
Thank you, Chair. I'm a member of the Policy Finance Committee. I did vote for this to come to full council, but very much on the basis that the Chair amended the recommendation for us to make sure that that was subject to consideration of risk. And I think there are 2 things here that we're conflating somewhat, and that is firstly the aim of the policy, which who could counter that? Of course, we need more social rented housing. Absolutely, 100%. I do not disagree with that at all. I do not want to be taken as disagreeing with that at all. But then we get to the procedure by which you do that. And that for me is the problem, and that's where the risks come in. As Councillor Jones-Evans said, there is a very extensive section in this report, more extensive than I can recall seeing in many years, about the risks that are present here. And as Councillor Garrett noted, risk was a key element of the discussion at the policy committee. I really think the fact that this policy requests everything to go the full distance, as it were, to full council will slow down the process and will do so fatally. It fails to recognise how the real world operates. I mean, if we just think about the licensing policies we've just looked at, they have come to full council for approval. They were both considered by a committee in January, 6 months ago. And I think we should have regard to that. The list of risks on page 205 is extensive. I'm not going to read the whole lot out, but the risk of increased costs, the risk where waiting for a decision means there may be renegotiation of the price or withdrawal, the risk of being affected by market fluctuations, and importantly, any delay is likely to damage the council's reputation as a seller of good faith, as we will be perceived as unable to conclude property transactions. And I'm afraid that is what I have to base my view on. Essentially, if you want a simple version of it, if you want to get to Cornwall, you take the A31, you don't go up the M1. There's a risk you're going to get lost, get fed up and give up. It's going to cost more. I think that's what where this policy will lead us. I think the policy will actually undermine the ability of council to achieve that aim in respect of social rent housing. So I'm afraid I can't support it.
Thank you, Councillor Bacon. I'm conscious of time, and we still have to go back to Councillor Garrett for his right of reply. So I've got Councillor Brading and Councillor Lever. If I could ask you to be succinct on this, that would be greatly appreciated. Councillor Brading.
I can do that, Chairman. This has actually, I think, been a really good debate. There's been some good points raised around this issue. This is a well-written draft policy, in my view. There's a well-written and carefully worded amendment that's now been accepted by this council, and it does bring it in line with the full council vote that was taken earlier this year. To me, everyone in this chamber must realise that social housing is a priority, as we mentioned, of this council. And the actual wording of the amendment and the policy now reads, overarching intention of the policy to promote the provision of social housing. To me, that says it all. It doesn't mean you have to, you've got to, you will do, but the overarching view of all of us and intention of all of us has to be to address the chronic problem we've got. So to me, this policy, I will be supporting it. The amendment is really carefully worded, accepted. It's a need that we all know exists. Let's put the policy in place to address the need that we've got. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brading. Councillor Lever. Joe.
Thank you, Chair. Just quickly, I've got a question around the options. So would we be voting on option 1 initially to note the risks outlined in the report, and then would we be voting on option 2 or 3?
Very good question, Councillor Lever. I believe it is something like this. The recommendations, Councillor Lever, and this is what we'll be voting on, is the Policy, Finance and Resources Committee recommend that full council note the risks associated with this policy approach outlined in this report, paragraphs 19 to 23, and agree and adopt the land and property asset disposal policy as part of the policy framework with an amendment agreed at full council.
So it's for option 1 or 2, 1 and 2, or option 3 then, essentially. No?
They're in option 3 then.
It's what I just read.
Yeah.
Councillor Garrett, you're right to reply.
Thank you, Chair. I would echo what Councillor Brading said. There has been a very good debate. It's covered a wide range of views. I think everybody is right behind that phrase of the overarching intention of the policy to deliver upon social housing. Councillor Jones-Evans made very, very good points around not so tightly tying ourselves down to housing that we miss the opportunities for business development and regeneration. I think I remarked upon that when I was speaking to the amendment, and I think that's going to be very important. Councillor Bacon has reminding us to think of the risks, and in particular certain risks that he highlighted. I think one of those is that, and I'm sympathetic, although I would stress I am not part of a process that led to the original draft having reference to this being decided at Policy, Finance and Resources. But I'm actually personally sympathetic to this council, once it's got this policy up and running, considering that it would be much better to expedite certain ambitions of this policy, to leave those decisions, to delegate those decisions to Policy, Finances and Resources Committee in the longer run. I sensed, though, that why I didn't bring an amendment myself this evening was that that would not carry in this chamber. And I think what this chamber is looking for is to deliver upon this policy. I will vote for it, but I do think that we will be finding ourselves looking very, very carefully at certain aspects of it. But I will leave it at that, Chair. It has been an excellent debate. We will see how the vote goes.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Councillor Garrett. And thank you, members, for a very constructive debate this evening. Very tempered, very productive. So let us move to the vote. All those in favour, please show. Please. Thank you. And for against? Thank you. And abstentions? Thank you. That is carried. Thank you very much again, members, for a respectful, productive, somewhat robust debate in parts. We'll call the meeting to a close. Thank you very much.